If you are on hold to chat, please stay on hold. We will take your phone calls before Mike Leach of Washington State and Dennis Miller join us in hour number 3. But I turn to my right and I see one of the most popular athletes in America over the last quarter century. And I'm not just saying that because he's sitting to my right or that he's got a new book that he has written to celebrate. It is a great book called Racing to the Finish, My Story. Junior, Dale Earnhardt Jr. here in the flesh. Good to see you,
yes,
sir.
Good to see you. Did you say Mike Leach?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's we're neighbors in the Keys.
Okay, now.
Wow.
Great way to start this.
Smokes.
What in the world is it like to be a neighbor
We're a
of
couple
Mike
houses
Leach?
apart, but I've ran into him down there in several places.
Like washing his car or something?
Just hanging out,
Okay.
having a brew, something like that. Yeah. Cool guy.
Did you ever have to borrow something from him, knock on the door, or
No,
vice
but
versa?
I actually ran into him, and he was with, God, he coached the Eagles. It's back in Chip Kelly.
Okay.
Him and Chip were hanging out.
Him and Chip.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my gosh.
This is amazing.
So he and Chip Keller are hanging out
Yeah.
in the Keys.
Yeah.
Dale
And then I
Earnhardt
saw
Jr.
Chip
strolls by.
again at the in the grocery store parking lot. But yeah, Mike has been down there a while, and so have we. We both have houses down there, and so we're kind of always in passing. Either he's coming into town and I'm leaving.
Right.
So that was funny.
Two ships.
kinda be
Yeah.
honest.
He's
Yeah.
coming. So you're like two ships passing
Yes,
here.
again.
You're here now. He's coming here.
That's kind of how it works.
In hour number 3. What's your first racing memory, Dale?
Yeah,
What would that be?
My first racing memory was being at the dirt tracks in around Charlotte, North Carolina. There's a Concord Metrolina. I don't know which one I was at, but I remember being at a race. I'm probably 6 or 7 years old and seeing cars go by. I just have this sort of old memory of watching my dad go by. Actually, he was running second to Gary Ballou, who was a really, really good short track racer from up and down the East Coast. And Gary Gary won the race. Dad run second. I just remember that vividly for whatever reason, that little snapshot. And a couple other moments of, being at certain races or racetracks. I remember being at, for whatever reason, I don't know why, I remember being at qualifying for the Charlotte race, I think the World 600 in 82 or 83. And those were the early memories for me.
Did you know for sure you wanted to race? I mean, is that it? Or did you right?
Oh, yeah.
Right
I mean, when I was a little boy, I was 6 or 7 years old. I was a football player for Halloween I had this basic plain, no number jersey. And
Okay.
the pants, the pads, the helmet, the shoulder pads. I was this football player for like 4 years straight on Halloween until it never fit anymore. And I wanted to be a Washington Redskin. I wanted to play football for the Redskins. So as a kid, that was my dream. But then, I started going to races and really understanding what my dad was doing, what racing was, and immediately fell in love with that and wanted to become a race car driver. But I knew, I'd seen sons try to follow their dads into that sport.
Yeah.
Not always easy to do. Doesn't always work out. It's very hard because if you aren't as good, you catch a lot of flack. You get beat up pretty bad by the fans if you don't measure up. And so I knew it was going to be tough. But I watched my dad win and succeed and celebrate, and it just was amazing. I was in awe of him, and I was kind of crazy about how people looked at Dad, like how Dad was treated. I'm like, man, I want to do this. People love what he does. People love him.
Mm-hmm.
This looks fun. And I worked a job. I worked a real job for a while. And
Which one?
my first job was changing oil. I got a speeding ticket, and Dad said I had to go get a job to pay for the lawyer, to pay for the ticket, to get it reduced to a muffler ticket or something like that, improper equipment. And so I got a job pumping gas at Exxon station. Then I worked building race cars at a shop for a while. I worked for about 3 or 4 years in a dealership, changing oil, quick lube guy, 29 minutes or less. Come in, I'd change your oil, change transmission fluid, whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
I worked in several jobs in the service department of a dealership. So I worked as the assistant to the engine guy. This was the best job. If you blowed the motor in your car, broke your transmission, he'd bring the car in. I'd pull the faulty part, the faulty transmission or the faulty motor, and he'd fix it. He'd put the right one in. So I was kind of helping him, expedite his job and his business. And I did that up in, I don't even remember how long, but The racing thing, I was racing while I was doing that job. I ran 159 late model races at Myrtle Beach, Nashville, Tennessee, Florence, South Carolina, all around in the Mid-Atlantic region. And I won 4 of those 159 starts. So I didn't think I was going to make it. You know, I wasn't winning enough races to get a break. And, but a break happened. You know, I got an opportunity to race a car at Michigan in the Xfinity Series in '97, and I ran in the top 10 and raced with Dale Jarrett and a bunch of guys that my dad raced against. My dad was there. Of those 159 late model races I ran, my dad never saw one of them.
No kidding.
So he never knew whether I was good, bad. He never watched me and went, okay, yeah, he's doing this, he's doing that. He had no clue how to judge me as a race car driver, only by the stats, really. So I didn't think that was going to be good enough. But he gave me an opportunity to race in one of his cars, and that day I was able to showcase some good things, and it's kind of steamrolled from there.
The rest being history. Dale Earnhardt Jr. here, racing to the finish, available right now where books are sold. Well, I'll say this. In terms of what you said as a little kid, you know, I want to do that. I want to be as successful as Dad, and you saw how your dad was successful and beloved.
Yeah.
You've succeeded in both, man. I mean, you have. I don't know. You know, you're a humble guy. You might not want to say, you know, okay, but you have.
Well, I'll say this. I've always owned the fact that I gained a ton of race fans prepackaged without any, you know, without really any statistics to back it up. So I understood that, and I knew that coming in. But I feel like from the moment I got into the Cup Series all the way until I retired, that we nurtured and grew that fan base. We grew it, and we helped grow the sport. I feel like that we did a lot of things that we NASCAR drivers typically didn't have the opportunity to do, to go mainstream and get into publications like MTV Cribs or Rolling Stone magazine. And I know that I had that key to the door because of the Budweiser relationship, and we had a lot of opportunities through that relationship through Budweiser. But I felt good about what I did as a driver. I won more races than I ever thought I would. I did not think that I was going to win the Daytona 500 in my life. I didn't think that I was going to have the success that I had on the track. I, of course, never imagined what would happen off the track, the fans, the opportunities to do those publications and things that people, late night shows, this, you know, I never thought this would be my life. So I feel like we did a really good job taking something that we probably didn't deserve and making more out of it. And it was a good ride, man. It was a lot of fun.
Well, and when you say it, and obviously in the past tense, so many of your fans, Dale, were disappointed to learn that you were getting out of the car. Obviously, you were concerned about your health, your concussions, and you talk about it in racing to the finish here. You were, this is fascinating to me. So you were writing down symptoms you were feeling, typing it into your phone?
Yeah.
When did you first start doing that, when you realized that maybe I need to start documenting the way I'm feeling?
Yeah, so I had a crash in 2012 and a couple wrecks that I layered 2 concussions together within a month and got in some pretty bad trouble physically with that. Ended up at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center with Michael Collins, who works with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Penguins, aside from seeing the everyman, kids, housewives, anyone who's suffered an injury like that. But he's a specialist in concussions, and he has a huge team around him and just an incredible facility, an incredible man. But I got put in front of him and when I was going through those concussions in 2012, and he helped me get well, gave me my life back, fixed all the problems I had.
What were the problems that you were having?
At that time, concussions are like snowflakes. Every one you get is different. Every time you get a concussion, you don't always have the same symptoms. You may have, or it may be taste, emotions, eyes, balance, emotion. Mm-hmm. There's so many things that the mind it's a computer, you know. And
I know we've seen what Luke Kuechly got carted off with a concussion. He was crying hysterically.
Couldn't control
and people are like, they thought maybe he broke his leg or something. No, he was concussed.
And you can't. It's a switch, like that crying, that emotion is a switch that flips on like a broken faucet that you can't turn off. And and that's the way all the symptoms are, because they just, they're out of control. But I had, at that time, I was dealing with fogginess, basically like the worst hangover you've had all day, every day, not going away, and nausea and some balance issues, but mainly just a fog, feeling disconnected, like I couldn't carry a conversation with people. I couldn't enjoy the moment or be in the moment. A lot of emotional things and short temper and anxiety, really, really raging anxiety, going into complex environments with busy things happening and lots of people around. Just, oh man, it was just terrible. But he fixed that and we got well. Well, going through that experience, I thought I was educated enough to manage it if it happened again. If I got in another crash, I called it a subconcussion. If I crashed and felt bad, it'd go away in a couple of days and I would be fine. And as long as it wasn't any more serious than that, I didn't need to probably alert Mickey or do anything. And in case, it was serious, I would document it. When the crash would happen on Sunday night, I would write down in these notes on my phone what I felt. I'd write down probably 3 or 4 entries every day after that until it would go away. And, and I would race for a month or 2 without any problems and crash again and repeat that process. And I did that. I had about 12 of those concussions from 2012 to 2016. I suffered about 12 of those types of concussions, and it caught up with me. I got to where one day, just out of nowhere, the last crash I had was on June 12th in Michigan in 2016. 4 weeks later, I woke up one day and I couldn't walk. I couldn't stand up I couldn't get out of this chair without holding on to it.
Out of the blue?
Just out of the blue. I couldn't walk across the room without holding on to that table. Turn a corner, you got to grab the wall, and any kind of motion with my head up, down, all around would send me spinning. And it came out of nowhere. I had no impact to link it to. The last crash was a month ago. And, you think concussions are immediately connected to an event.
Sure.
In that moment, right? Well, they're not. They don't always have to be. They can, you can have these concussion issues. That's what tricks a lot of people, is these issues can kind of come weeks after the crash or the impact that you have or the event that you have. So that's what happened. I put all the, I did this, I beat myself up for all these years trying to manage it myself. And I ended up with really, really debilitating symptoms. Balance. My eyes didn't work well. I couldn't, they call it gaze stabilization. So when I'd walk across the room, my eyes would sort of have a hard time. The room would shake. Driving down the road in a car, road signs and cars around me are bouncing around like crazy.
No kidding.
You couldn't, you just had to stare at the floor. You couldn't ride down the road in a car. Me and my wife went to a tasting for our wedding, and it was a 2.5, 3 hour trip, round trip. And I just stared at the floorboard the whole way home. It was just miserable. And so anyways, I find myself back at Mickey Collins in Pittsburgh, and I had to get out of the car. We were in the middle of the race season. He's like, you got to stop. And I had to take medication to help with my anxiety. That was the first time I had ever really taken any medication for my concussion symptoms. But he gave me a very robust package of treatment for 5 months. I was doing these exercises, physical exercises on computers for the visual stuff. The treatment that he gave me in 2016 was completely 180 from what he gave me in 2012, meaning that they have learned so much just in that short period of time. Because we're kind of living in this whole discovery of what's going on with CTE and what athletes are dealing with and changing the culture. And while all this is happening on the field and on the racetrack, scientists are now pushing the research. They're also obviously having patients and examples like myself to learn from. And more people are speaking up, knowing that they can go get treatment. In 2012, I didn't know I could go to a doctor, and I just thought you laid down and let it rest off and let it go away like a bruise. Well, now me and everyone else is learning that you can go to this doctor, you can go to a doctor, get treatment. So we're all in like hyperspeed, learning treatment, discovering things, understanding things. and it's amazing to be going through that process. But that's what the book's about. The book's about my missteps, my mistakes, trying to manage it myself. The book's about Mickey. Mickey comes in behind a lot of the conversation in the book and backs up some of the things I'm talking about, or explains why I'm saying the things I'm saying, doing the things I'm doing, what we did to treat X, Y, and Z. So he's as much of the book as I am, which adds a lot of substance and credibility to the story. And he writes the foreword, which is, I think, really powerful coming from him. And so all I want to do really is to drive people to Mickey. There's a bunch of Mickeys in this world, but Mickey is the man I know. And I want to drive people to Mickey in Pittsburgh that need his help. Whether you're an athlete or a housewife, a plumber, I don't care. And then if you had a injury 10 years ago that's still giving you problems today, Mickey can help you. And you can have this. I want people to have the best quality life they can. That's really important for me. Becoming a father and newlywed and all those things. I'm retiring from racing. I've got this amazing opportunity in front of me, life, in front of me. And so I want people to be able to enjoy what I'm enjoying.
Dale Earnhardt Jr., the book, again, Racing to the Finish, My Story. And it's interesting you say finish because, as you just said, you feel like you've got a new start going on right now. Is life ahead of you? You're working with NBC. You're doing a great job as a broadcaster right now. And as you mentioned, you've got a 6-month-old daughter, Isla, with your wife, Amy. If you have a son, or if you would like Isla to race, would you be up for letting your kids get in a car?
Absolutely. I would never discourage anybody from racing, playing sports, whatever. That's not the message. The message is to make when you are hurt, to make the better decision.
Do you think you didn't make the right decision?
I did not make the right decisions. Absolutely not. No, when I got hurt in 2012 initially and got help and saw Mickey, the next time I got hurt, months down the road, 6 months or whenever, I should have went right back to him. And I tried to manage it myself and keep it to myself. And I did that for 3 or 4 years until it caught up with me and I couldn't hide it no longer. So if you get a nasty hit or a nasty fall and you have these symptoms, go to the doctor, get in front of a neurosurgeon to get ahead of this issue, or just you do not want to risk managing this yourself, getting another injury in a short period of time, and dealing with these symptoms down the road that you don't have to deal with. You don't have to live with these these annoying little right under the surface problems that are going to be there. And so yeah, I don't feel like that I handled that the right way. I didn't tell that story when it was happening live, and I retired prematurely. I know that. I feel that. And I feel like my fans know that. And they're like, what's going on? Why are you quitting? You're young, in terms of drivers, I feel young. I feel great. And I know my fans had a ton of questions as to why are you retiring? Why? This makes no sense. Well, this book spells everything out for them. And the ones that have read it, that I've heard from,
they're like,
I get it. This man, I did not know this was all happening. And I didn't want to tell that story while I was racing. After I came back from the injury in 2016, I ran one more season in 2017. And that was sort of my, hey, this is my last year, guys. Let's have some fun. Let's enjoy it. I didn't want to tell the story and be talking about concussions that entire final year. I wanted to just love what I was doing and get it all out of my system and enjoy those last several laps.
Well, you're making the most of your platform, obviously, of your post, racing career, doing your broadcasting again with NBC, and then writing a book like this, which must not have been easy for you to do.
It wasn't fun to go back and relive a lot of that stuff. I was ashamed of some of the things that I was going to be telling people, ashamed of the mistakes I made. My wife didn't even know about these notes for a long time.
About in your phone you're talking about?
Yeah, like I hid it from everyone. And my wife, she knew something wasn't quite right at certain points. She was always, kind of, like, is there something you need to tell me after each of these accidents? Are you being totally truthful? Because she would come to me and say, you okay? Is your head okay? And I would always go, yeah, I think I'm fine, and, brush it off. So that it was tough to reveal the truth, but I think you have to tell the whole story to have any credibility to the story, and for the story to reach people, it has to be the whole story. So, and I felt like my fans deserve that truth.
Man, you are authentic as they get, man. I'm serious. This is, because when you hear somebody retires earlier than would be expected, you think that might have been a struggle. Sounds like that this was an easy decision for you to do.
It was an easy decision for me because I didn't want to go through it anymore.
Sure.
Plus, with the broadcasting opportunity, it's been so seamless for me. Had I not had that, I think I would probably be missing it terribly. But the broadcasting gives me a great opportunity to be involved in the sport. I'm at the track. I'm talking racing. I'm a huge fan. I was a fan first before I became a driver, so I just can go back to doing that. And when I watch those guys race, they're elite athletes doing something very hard, very challenging. I respect the struggle of racing a car for 3.5 hours when it's 140, 150 degrees inside the car. I don't want anything to do with that anymore.
Well, it's great to see you, Dale. Please, whenever you're out here in Los Angeles, I'd love to have you back in here. We'll talk about your Redskins too. You concerned?
Absolutely.
You concerned?
I am. We lost a great guard, Brandon. A couple guys banged up on the offensive line. That's going to be difficult for us, and our quarterback and wide receivers just aren't working well together for whatever reason. Defense is doing
Peterson's
a
unbelievable,
good job.
isn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, he's been remarkable.
He's been doing a good job. Our defensive line's great. Those draft picks that we've got from Alabama are doing a good job.
That's right.
Yeah, we got
Kerrigan is being Kerrigan.
Kerrigan's
again.
Kerrigan, man.
Exactly. Great to see you, Dale.
Thank you.
Junior, check out his new book, Racing to the Finish, that's available right now at Dale Jr. on Twitter as well as Instagram.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.